Hey everybody, welcome back to another JBoz Gaming video. This is your host JBoz, and we're going to continue this video with a review of Abbey, the map for World of Tanks console. We're going to talk about the strategies that you might employ on Abbey and how this map generally plays. So to start, if it's an encounter battle, the encounter flag, if you will, or central cap, if you will be in the middle of the map on the left side of the city as you face it, or if you're on the north side, it'll be on the right. So I guess it'll be on this side of the city, which is generally between the 3 and 4 line. It's right in this mix here. And then, of course, if you're in a standard battle, you might be able to, you'll see that there are caps up north on the northern side. This would be, let's call this the red team. And there will also be a cap on the southern side of the map on a plateau on the southern side of the map down here. And so this would be the two opposing, if you will, flags that each team will have to capture. And then, of course, if there are no cap circles, then it's team destruction, and you got to kill all the other enemy tanks. So let's start with the green team here on the south side of the map. If you are trying to look at the different routes of attack, for the green team, there is going to be what I call the 1-2 line, which is over here on this side, where you can traverse up. This is the 1 line. You can traverse up the 1 line all the way, if you so choose, to attack the enemy cap circle. Or you can come around, and there's kind of 2 ways to get to what I call the 2 line, which is you can come up this little ramp here, get on the 2 line, and then traverse up the 2 as well. And you can there's 2 ways to kind of get here. One, you can overlook it and shoot onto the cap, or you can come down off the hill, off the plateau, and move over to the cap. Now, as you work this side, you can traverse from the 1 or 2 at different areas of the map. So here, there are openings in the hills between the 1 and 2 line, which allow you to go between those. All right. So this side of the map is fine, and the red team has the same ability, just from the different kind of side of the map, to traverse down the 2 and the 1 line. The important thing that I'll say about the 1 and 2 line is there are also openings, in this area, and also here overlooking the caps, and here overlooking the caps. And there's also a second area here, which give you shots. These shots give you angle into the city center and into the 4 line and so on. So this 1-2 line is a pretty important area of this map. And if you're not going to attack from this flank, then it is important to at least have spotters or some kind of tanks over here defending, so that the enemy team can't just rush you and you not know that the flank is being attacked. So that's the kind of 1-2 line. You have the ability to attack on either one of those. Then you also have the ability to come through the city, and there's multiple ways through the city to attack the cap circle. There's this first area is directly down the 4 line, right on the road, right through the middle of the city. Now, in a minute, I'm going to talk about what some of the maybe difficulties or risk of taking this route will be. But there's also alternative ways through the middle of the map. One is through this kind of 3 area or 3 line through the city to attack the cap circle. And you can kind of attack either way around this ridge line. But this water, there's sections that you can drown in, but a lot of it is shallow enough that you can traverse. And so you don't have to stay in the city. You can get low. If there's somebody in the middle, you can still traverse this with some protection. This here, it kind of crescendos into a hill in the middle. So if you can imagine kind of drawing a line through the middle of the map, there's a hill right here in the middle of the city where if you get over that hill, then you're easy shots for either tank destroyers that sit here for the red team or back here for the green team. So they're going to have vision down this 4 line, and I would really say you can't really advance without risking getting shot. You can't really advance on this 4 line very far. In fact, you can get to the city, but you can't go into the city if you're going to stay on the 4 line. The only way you can really do that is if you have a tank that is able to get hull down and you stay below the ridge line and you just expose your turret. And you'll see this in higher tiers where some of the stronger turret tanks will come up to the 4 line and get hauled down and then shoot down the 4 line to try to take out defensive positions on the opposing team. But this is kind of the second 2, if you will, areas of attack. And then the city does have a third, which is the 7 line. And this is this little valley between the buildings on the right and the main city. The city sits up higher elevation than even this ridge line over here. So it creates quite a little valley. And honestly, it doesn't really matter what tier you're playing. This is not a strong position to go down because you're going to have tank destroyers, and probably more than one, sitting in bushes here, shooting straight down the 7. And you'll have tank destroyers sitting here and here in bushes, shooting down the 7 line. So this is the most risky of any attack route that exists on Abbey. The final attack route is really the kind of 8-9 line. The 8 line is kind of this ridge, if you will. A lot of I refer to it as just all of this area as the 8 line, but there's really an 8 and a 9 line. But if you kind of consider the last route of attack, it's down this narrow path here to attack the opposing team's cap circle. There's alternative routes in that you can dip down and traverse along here, right, to get kind of an alternative. But for the most part, there will be defenders potentially sitting here, or in this case, they might sit here, right? And sometimes they'll sit even further back if they're a little smarter. They might be up on a ridge line in a bush, and there's a little hill here with a ridge line also that provides more protection as far as defensive positions on this 8-9. So if we kind of count, all the countermeasures that would be employed against you, for this, even though they can put defenders on the 1-2 line, they aren't as protected as if they were sitting here, here, or here. So the 1-2 line is really the safest route to proceed. So that's the kind of lanes of attack for Abbey. And if you kind of think about it, there's 2 over here, there's somewhat 2 over here, and there's certainly 3 through the middle. So that gives you a total of 7 lanes of attack. And out of those 7 lanes of attack, I would say the 1-2 line is probably the safest, that exposes you the least in being able to take shots or while you're trying to make progress up the map from either side. And the reason the 2 line is so important on this map is once you do get up to the middle area and you have these openings into the city, you've just, whether it was safe or not, you've just now taken away any safety in these 2 routes through the city. So that matters a great deal. So, by winning this side, if you will, you start to take over more and more map control. And so that's why the 1 and 2 line is pretty important on Abbey. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to win the 1 and 2 line. You just have to defend it so that they don't get up to the middle and take away these routes of attack. So it doesn't mean you have to come all the way down here. You can actually just win to this position. And you don't even have to be sitting here. You just have to win so that you can shoot in these positions, and they won't be able to secure those shooting spots into the city center. Now, if you can, then you take advantage of map control, right? Because now you control at least half the map. If you're sitting here, you can shoot these lines as well as shoot into the city. There is play for light tanks and more fast, more mobile tanks to get up into the city center. And so, and I'm just going to kind of draw this in red, is in this area, a lot of tanks will get up here and then shoot from this position right here, overlooking the 7 line. Now, again, if people really heed what I'm saying and the 7 line is least traversed out of all these attack routes, then this advantage to be up here, other than spotting, it's not going to result in a lot of damage because the other routes that you would be able to potentially take away are protected. So this has buildings on this side to protect the people that are moving up this direction, and of course they have this alternate that has an entire hill between you and the middle, and vice versa. If they have people, if the opposing team has people in these positions, well, now you're exposed being in the middle because they can shoot into the city and potentially hit you. Sure, you could stay up here and snipe back and try to take them out, but for the most part, that's a very isolated battle, and you're not going to affect the overall battle too much. But there are quite a few people that will play where they're trying to get spotting damage, and they'll move up into the middle. You have to be very what I call map aware to play here, because you have to know where all the enemy tanks are around you and be able to pop out, spot, and then cover back up. So when you're up here, I'm gonna, because it's kind of getting busy, I'm gonna erase some of the lines so we can kind of talk about the middle play here. Yeah, I'm just gonna erase this real quick. So the good news is when you're in the middle, though, there's some things you can do to increase your spotting. So again, by overlooking this area here, you can spot people potentially traversing on the 7 or the 8 line. You can potentially spot people that are trying to traverse through this side of the city. Not as much over here, but what you can do is you can move out and around these buildings. So there's a little kind of trail here that presents itself in the front for the opposing team to overlook the cap circle. And they have to be very careful because this is open and exposed. And again, they will have tank destroyers sitting here that will be able to shoot you, maybe even some that's sitting here. So you have to stay behind the building here to get sight onto the cap circle, but you can do that from the middle. And vice versa, if you're the green team, there's arches here that are open, and you can actually see through these arches to the cap circle and maybe get shots on people that are camping back here or tank destroyers over here. Now remember, if you're not careful and don't cover up, they can also shoot into the middle from that position as well. So the middle here, this section, to win this, it's really better for this side because they don't have to watch their heinies, so to speak, because of the arches. Where if you get up here and you're green, well, you don't have protection, right? So you have to be aware that they can still potentially spot you in the middle from these positions and shoot into the middle from the northern cap circle. So it's more advantageous for this side because they already have protection from the cap. Where if the green wins this area, they don't have necessarily complete protection from the cap. So that's why, kind of playing in here, you have to be really aware of how this middle plays and from which direction the enemy will be firing at you. So map awareness is critical to play this section. But you can certainly get a lot of spotting damage here by continuing to spot people that are trying to move up, or spotting the tank destroyers that people are trying to take out. So it is certainly a playable area, but you definitely have to be a mobile tank. I wouldn't take a heavy tank up here, and just because most times you're not going to have a large degree of success. And a heavy tank, really, you need to be holding the flanks as best you can. Again, pushing up to take away some of the shot positions on 1-2, stopping them from traversing and outflanking you on the 8-9, and of course potentially moving up to these positions to keep people from coming at your caps from the city center. All right, so Lights, certainly, because they have speed and mediums as well, will tend to play out on the flanks. So the 1-2 line and the 8 line, certainly. You'll have a few light tanks, especially really speedy light tanks, spotting in the middle. And then, of course, your heavies, again, will be more protecting the flanks, trying to hold down the flanks, and then slowly encroaching upon the city just to keep them from pushing up and overlooking your cap circle. Artillery. Artillery for the northern spawn, a lot of times they'll sit anywhere along this back row, okay? And it can be as far over as here, actually. So they'll be anywhere here. In fact, sometimes some artillery even get off the plateau and set lower and here. So artillery generally is going to be on this back row, okay? For the southern spawn, or in this case the green team, they're gonna generally sit on the back side as well, more towards this side of the map, so that you'll find the artillery generally in these positions in bushes in this corner, or just out here because they don't know to cover up. They don't go to the bush, but generally you'll find artillery in these positions. Now, that being said, there are hiding spots and what I'll call overlook positions on this map to be aware of. So hiding spots, there's a hiding spot here that has a huge dip in it. And so if you can get up on this hill and get into this kind of little valley, then no one can spot you unless they get proximity spotting where they're just so close within 50 meters. It's the smaller white circle on your mini map. You won't be able to see them. You'll never know they're there. And a lot of artilleries at the end of the game will go hide. And so they'll go to these hiding spots. The other hiding spot on this map is actually back here in the corner, and you can actually traverse all the way back up in here, and this is also a hiding spot that a lot of people don't even know about, is this area here. If you get a strong tank destroyer or artillery that can shotgun a lot of people, it's hard to root them out of here. This also can be difficult, but you can defeat anybody that's in here by 2 tanks, one coming from this side angle and another just coming up on the top. And eventually they can't fire at both, so eventually you can get them. Where here, there's really only one way in and one way out, and this provides a pretty good kind of shotgunning position for like I said, artillery or tank destroyers. All right, overlook positions. Overlook positions, we kind of mentioned a few of them right off the top, but there's an overlook position here that overlooks this cap, and obviously an overlook position here that overlooks this cap. So those are the more well-known, but there are also overlook positions. You can actually, at least used to, I still believe you can, climb up here where you have overlook into the city. You can also climb up this side and have overlook into the middle and also down this line. But more importantly, you can shoot back at the cap circle in case you need to uncap people. So from this green side, it's a good overlook position late in game. And then you also have an overlook position over here on this line, where if you're the green team and you traverse down the 8 line and you want to shoot the cap circle, you can drive up on this hill. Once you're in that position, you have visibility really to all of this. And I'll kind of draw kind of a triangle to what you can kind of see. So you have a vision into all of this. So this overlook is pretty significant. So just know that if the enemy team sees you get up there, don't stay up there because there's no defensive position up here. It's simply you can get up and snipe and shoot them when they don't know you're up here. Once you're spotted, though, you'll have to get down because they will certainly try to take this person in this spot out as quick as possible because it definitely exposes a lot of weakness on this side. And the same is true over here. You have advantage once you reach this position to overlook the cap circle. And so, you can get behind this rock here and kind of shoot around into the cap circle. There's actually a rock here that you can use to have some defense and still stay in this overlook position. And then, of course, this overlook position is pretty powerful as well in that it can see. There's no way to get to this overlook position from the north. It's only from the south that you have to drive up and drive down this little ridge line to get to this overlook position. So it's really for this It's really for this team. And once you've obtained that, then it's the ultimate defensive position to overlook or get people off your cap if they're trying to cap, or if they've taken these positions. Now you can counterfire, and you can control this whole backside of the map in this overlook position right there. So that's why these two positions are pretty important. You can get to this position from the northern side just by driving down the 8 line and getting into this position, but it doesn't do you any good because you're looking back at your team. So this would be a late game play in order to uncap folks off of potentially your cap. And same here, it only provides you backward looking vantage point over your cap. And no, you don't get advantage by getting into that position because it's so hard to get to these positions from the opposing team, right? This is probably the easiest position to get to from the opposing team, in that this team can make progress down the 8 line and eventually get to this place where they can get to this overlook position. This, you literally have to make it all the way down the 8 line and come around and then drive up. So if they have any defensive positions at all here, and you've taken them out, then this advantage kind of gets a little smaller because you know there's nobody here defending their cap. But you can eventually get up there. It's just a much, much longer route, and I'm not sure the advantage once you get there is that much, because obviously that would be way, way late game and not a lot of tanks left to shoot at. All right. Oops. So we talked about light tanks, we talked about medium tanks, we talked about artillery, we've talked about overlook positions. Let's talk a little bit about just being map aware. So, for example, playing the Abbey, you don't want to be real aggressive. And I'm going to do another video, or I already have, about controlled aggression. But it really applies on Abbey in a sense that you don't want to just rush down any one of these attack corridors. You want to really get in positions where you spot the enemy and really understand where the enemy is before you just do a full-out attack. Because you can quickly, in a light tank, get out here and take down and run down the 1-2 line just to find out that, oh, you've got 5 or 6 tanks sitting here waiting on you and you're destroyed. Or they have also moved this direction and meet you in the middle, and you're outnumbered. Whatever. My point is, you really need to be controlled when you start out in the Abbey. You don't need to run down these attack avenues and just throw away your tank. You got to be smart about this. It has to be controlled at the beginning, and then once you understand where the enemy is, you can then reposition to either counter an attack that you think that they're trying to make, or position yourself on a particular attack route where there's less enemies. So, for example, if we start out in Abbey and we see that our allies are spotting folks, and we see that they have tanks on let's say the 8-9 line, we know that they've moved tanks into these positions. Might even have a light tank here. They've got, a heavy that's moved up here. They've got tank destroyers that are here shooting down the 7 line. So already we're getting a strong sense that they've got at least defensive positions on the right side of the map. And after a few more spots, we know that they've got a few people on the cap, and we know that they're maybe running around. There's even somebody that's come through the city, right? It's been spotted. We are starting to add up that there are more tanks on this half of the map than there are on this side of the map. So if you're sitting here, let's say you're spotting here, you're a tank destroyer or a light tank or whatever, and you're sitting here and you're spotting some of these folks, even engaging them in some exchange of fire, you want to keep an eye on this flank, right? Because if you know that this is where they are, and if they've spread out evenly, as they should, now not all teams do what they should, but if they've spread out evenly, there's got to be some tank. And especially after I've told you, this side you can't just leave it empty. You've got to know that eventually there might be somebody that's, shows up here to snipe the cap circle, especially if you don't have any allies that went to this side of the map. You can't just rush out and attack the enemy on this side because all you're going to do is get outflanked from this side. So you need to be cautious and think about how your forces are displayed or dispersed, as the word I'm looking for, dispersed on the map versus what you know about the enemy team. So if all of your team is dispersed on the right side of the map, and you know a bulk of the enemy team is on the right side of the map, then you need to be aware of the left side of the map, because that's where the sneak attack is going to come. That's where the flanking maneuver either is going to happen or is an opportunity for you to move down that flank and get into positions, that we showed you to shoot into the middle, right? So this map is about controlled aggression. I mean, it really is. You need to know where the enemy is, and once you've isolated an enemy, then you attack that spot. You attack that weakness in their defense. Now, it is true of both sides that as a team, you want at least 1 or 2 tanks on each side of the map. You want a good defensive position on the back side of the map. And then you want probing tanks looking into the city to try to spot people and determine, well, how are they positioned? How is the enemy team positioned? Okay. Once that happens, probably in the first minute or 2 minutes of the match, well, now you're in a position to decide how you want to attack this map. Again, you have 7 routes of attack. Again, there in general, it's more on the 1-2 line that you want to attack, but that doesn't mean that there are going to be some games where they just leave the 8 line completely open, right? And they've sent all of their team to attack the 1-2 line, which is fine. But maybe you have 4 or 5 tanks over here that can defend the 1-2 line against a 8 team attack. But because they're so weak on the 8 line, you're able to take your position, move down the 8 line to this overlook position that we talked about earlier, right? Oh, right here. This overlook position, and now you're really creating an advantage, because maybe you can take out their tank destroyer, maybe you can take out you can take out their artillery, maybe you can take out their tank destroyers, which then gives you huge advantage to allowing people to push these open now attack routes. Even though they were risky at the beginning of the game, now they're less risky because they know that there's nobody sitting here, because you're sitting here and you're starting to spot people on the backside of the map. They know they can move up and help you take these people out. All the while, these guys are holding, or at least slowing, the advance of the attack on the 1-2 line. And guess what? You're going to be able to cap out, or if you're lucky enough, you might be able to come around and catch them on the backside and squeeze them in a pincher move. All right, so that's how Abbey generally plays. But I can't stress enough that map awareness is so important when you play these maps, and being able to adjust to these maps based on what you're seeing your team do versus what the enemy team has done. And so that's why you really need to, especially on maps like Abbey, be map aware and really thinking about, well, where is it best to position? Where is it best to attack? Where is it best to defend? Where is our team weak? Where is our team strong? And make sure that you're also communicating with your allies to help move tanks to the right spot. All right. Hopefully this has been helpful. If it has, please hit that like button. I appreciate the feedback. And of course, leave me a comment if there's some other things that you think I should have addressed in this video, or if you just want to see a certain map, leave a comment. If you like what we're doing here, it's always appreciated if you hit that subscribe button. And we wish you the best of luck on the battlefield, and we'll see you on the next one.